And how is everybody doing? Alongside Jason Andera, I am Jay Elsen, and this is the 5th annual Varsity Sports Signing Day Special. Buckle up because it's going to be quite a ride over the next 60 minutes as we let you know who is going where. We're going to hear from a number of different players as well as some of the new coaches.
Yeah, there's been so much work behind the scenes by a lot of young football players just to get to this day. So congratulations, first of all, to all you out there. We're going to try to mention as many of you as we possibly can, and it's going to be fun for this next 60 minutes.
And if we don't mention you, you are going to be here, so keep your eyes on that. All right, well, we are going to kick things off tonight with the biggest fish in the Dakotas.
No doubt.
Guy by the name of Matt Farniok, the Sioux Falls, Washington standout, might be the single most highly recruited player in South Dakota history. This young guy has been on the radar of a number of big-time programs ever since his freshman season.
Yeah, and after his freshman season, the chatter just continued to get louder and louder through the next few years. Farniok actually received several offers from FBS schools all across the country, and he had to narrow his choices down to just Michigan State, Iowa, and Nebraska to go on his official visits. I recently sat down with Matt to talk about how he came to his decision. After collecting 17 FBS offers, Matt trimmed down his focus to 3 schools, including Nebraska, Michigan State, and Iowa. He took official visits to all 3 and loved them, all for different reasons, which made his decision excruciatingly tough.
It was actually a lot harder than I thought because all 3 schools were honestly so similar that it was really hard to tell that much difference from them.
When it comes to recruiting, Matt Farniok is in some rare air. Not many high schoolers have the 2 teams in the Big Ten Championship crossing paths in their living room. But that's exactly what happened last week.
Michigan State came just kind of say hi real quick, and they came over to the house, and then right when they were getting ready to leave, Iowa was coming into the door, and so they just bumped into each other.
Trying to guess where Matt would go became one of the hottest topics in the area, but the hype went further than the Dakotas. A national recruiting website, Rivals.com, actually shut down for 40 minutes because of high traffic after Matt made his decision.
I didn't really think it was going to be this huge deal that it was. I mean, honestly, I thought just South Dakota kid going to Nebraska. Yeah, I didn't think of how big it really was, and then all of a sudden when I tweeted it out, it kind of like blew up, and I was like, whoa, like I did not expect this whatsoever.
All this hype was definitely not self-induced. In fact, the drama may have inflated because he was so quiet and low-key about the process. Matt enjoys the fact that there was a lot of love for him, but he's happy to give up the spotlight.
Yeah, it's actually really nice now that I can just be done with the whole recruiting thing. I know where I'm going, I can relax and just kind of enjoy the last semester of my high school career.
And there is much more to that interview. If you'd like to listen to it in its entirety, go to midcosn.com/podcasts. Matt Farniok, by the numbers, Jason, pretty impressive.
Pretty impressive. I mean, the numbers don't tell the whole story, but right there, 17 FBS offers, the Gatorade Player of the Year. This guy stands out on a field not only because he is a big and strong guy, but he is quick with his feet, and he makes some incredible plays on the field. I mean, we have the habit of watching the ball a lot, so it was kind of a eye-opener for us when we actually started focusing on what he's doing. And stuff like this happened every game where he would line up against the opposing defensive ends of South Dakota and just truck them. And this is definitely signs of things to come in the Big Ten. I think he's going to be able to push some people around there, too.
And it's not just the fact that he's doing this against the opponent. It's regularly, week in, week out, he's doing it against the best that this state has to offer.
Yeah, exactly. There's no slouches in double or triple A, especially the Sioux Falls schedule that he gets to play against. And he's doing stuff like this where he's frequently getting pancakes and taking people downfield. You can see one right here. He takes Dodie McQuinja for a little bit of a ride. I mean, that's a good player. That's a D1 player he just did that to. So, yeah, a lot of props and a lot of promise for the future from Matt Farniok.
Yeah, Farniok to the Huskers. We did have one other FBS commit we want to talk about. That's Dustin Weeks from West Hope, Newburgh, Glenburn from North Dakota. He's headed to Wyoming. Craig Bohl.
He's going to go see Craig Bohl, and he made the decision before the season started. And you can see he stands out, especially on a 9-man field. When you're 6'9", you can push people around a little bit. And that's the one thing. I'm wondering how he's going to compete at the FBS level with a little bit better competition around him. He had no problem at the 9-man level in North Dakota, though, and Wyoming gets a big guy, a 3-star recruit who made his decision early, like we said.
Oh, these two guys, just the latest in a growing list of FBS recruits from the Dakotas that have chosen FBS schools here over the last few years. Jason, let's take a look now at some of those guys starting back in 2013. Dustin Adams from Minot. He's a reminder that it doesn't always work out. He originally committed to Hawaii, then went to Northern Illinois, transferred to UND, and unfortunately for him, an injury has forced him to hang it up. But these other two guys from 2013.
13, it shows you just how much talent resides in South Dakota with Matt Vandenberg. A breakout season in his junior year, 65 receptions. Remember, he was going to gray shirt, which means basically take a year and a half off before he was going to play, and they decided to play him right away as a true freshman, and he's definitely paid off. And Nate Gary, we all know what level he plays at, 9 picks in the last 2 years for the Huskers.
Nothing in 2014, but 2015, the single largest group of FBS guys in one given season.
Yeah, last year, a lot of guys, Lincoln Feist, James Johannesson, Brady Reef, Grant Schmidt, all red-shirting last year, so we'll be able to watch them on Saturday mornings coming up next season.
And, of course, we just mentioned Weeks and Farniak. But needless to say, Jason, the Dakotas no longer flyover territory when it comes to FBS recruiting.
And you saw the cream of the crop is very good. So maybe there'll be a little more digging in the Dakotas to find some talent to fill out rosters from area FBS schools.
Now, let's be honest, it's a little more exciting when that level of football is that much more relevant because there's guys you and I and every other college football fan in this part of the country has heard of.
Well, exactly. And the FCS level of teams around here is so good. I think that's done nothing but help and kind of push people up to that next level in the FBS level. So, yeah, people finding out there's some players around this area.
Absolutely. All right, well, stay put because we are just getting started. We're going to look at some of the athletes who chose Division II a little later on. But first, the focus shifts to the FCS. Find out which guys signed with either UND or NDSU when we come back.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute, Shields, and Farmers Union Insurance Agency.
And welcome back to the Varsity Sports Signing Day Special. Well, Jason, when you win national championships, selling your program becomes that much easier, and such is the situation for the now 5-time defending FCS champion North Dakota State Bison,
right, yep,
who continue to land some extremely high-level talent. Some of that is homegrown, including this year's top in-state target, Minot tight end Braden Lund.
I went up to a football camp last summer in June, and I got to get coached by the coaches and fell in love with them instantly. You know, I felt like I could trust them, and they would be the best fit for my future. And my mom had to feel comfortable with it. My grandma felt comfortable with it, so that helped a lot in my decision process. And I felt immensely comfortable when I was going there and visiting the campus and all my official, getting to know the players and all of them. So it's a pretty easy decision for me.
Well, the Bison also inked 3 in-state linemen, Quinn Allo, Carson Schoening, and Cordell Volson. So once again, NDSU is building that interior line with North Dakota talent.
Well, we're gonna win the state of North Dakota first. That's our number one goal, is to keep the kids that want to be Bison in state. And if you want to play for the Bison, we need to find a way to get you here. And Coach Hedberg does a phenomenal job in the state of North Dakota. He's got such a great reputation with the coaches and the players. And yeah, for us, you're right. Offensive line, linebackers, fullbacks, you know, the bigger body guys, tight ends. There's a bunch of them out there, and obviously there's a development side of things. But I think those kids in the state of North Dakota realize, boy, look at these kids. Look at a kid like Landon Leckler that started here at 240 pounds, and look where he's at today. And we're excited about keeping all those kids in state.
All right, for a closer look on that North Dakota State 2016 class, we bring in Midco SN analyst Brian Shawn. Brian, what do you have?
Guys, thank you so much. North Dakota State signing 26 players to letters of intent on National Signing Day today. 10 of those preferred walk-ons, 6 of them are from the state of North Dakota. And for North Dakota State, where they've been successful up front, offensive line, fullback, tight end, those are the needs they addressed in state by signing 3 offensive linemen and big boys at that. Not all of them from big schools. Look at Cordell Volson, not from a huge school at Drake, but performed very well at camp here, as did Carson Schoening, and even Quinn Allo, a guy that is coming in as a walk-on. had some scholarship offers to some smaller schools and even to some Division I schools on a partial scholarship, able to get those guys to stay at North Dakota State. So all three of them performed well. Big physical guys, going to take a little while to acclimate them to the college game, the speed of the game, and the physical nature of the game here at NDSU, but I think they feel really good about those three guys that they got. As for Braden Lund out of Minot High School, a guy they had committed early, got a scholarship offer early after performing so well at their summer camp here at NDSU and played both tight end and defensive end. They're going to bring him in as a tight end here. Again, they feel really good about his athleticism. When you watch him play basketball and some other sports, brings a lot of things to the table. So keep an eye on Braden Lund, a guy that's probably going to redshirt, but I think a guy they feel really good about his future in the program. When you look at the rest of this North Dakota State class, a big part and a big area that they wanted to try to continue to build on was the offensive line, and they were able to do that. We talked about some of the in-state kids. They are also able to go into the Twin Cities and grab Dylan Radens, who had a Missouri offer late. They were able to hang on to him and also get Ben Hecht, who had a preferred walk-on offer at the University of Kansas, to stay put here at NDSU as well, which is making up a very strong offensive line class for the Bison. And of course, they're hoping these guys can continue to open holes for those running backs like they have for the last few years. Linebacker, also an area they wanted to try to build some depth, and they're able to do that with Jabril Cox. Got him to commit just last week. An athlete they feel really good about, 6'3", 220, also played quarterback and beat out a number of Valley schools and even an FBS school to get him to come to North Dakota State. Moses Nyangacha out of the Twin Cities, athletic guy, played safety. We're going to try him out at linebacker, and also Ross Kennelly out of Superior, Wisconsin, another guy that performed very well at their camp. So offensive line and linebacker, two areas North Dakota State wanted to address, and they were able to get an abundance of both at those positions.
All right, thank you, Brian. And let's take one more look at all these North Dakota kids that are staying home to play for the Bison.
Well, these are the in-state guys, and not all of them are scholarship guys, but preferred walk-on guys at North Dakota have done very well in the recent past, and I think they've got a couple guys that can do that here. Even a guy like Zach Coons for Red River, very physical defensive player, played fullback a little bit at the high school level. I think he'll be a useful guy, a really versatile guy on that defensive side for this Bison team coming into the future. But they talked about it in the piece. All these linemen, all these linebackers, the tight ends, the big guys, they're finding guys from the home turf. And that's very important for this Bison team as they continue to dominate the state of North Dakota.
Yeah, and that's maybe one of the more impressive parts about their run is that as you look at the roster, big-time contributors from the state of North Dakota in that 5 straight FCS National Championships. All right. Well, now that we've looked at NDSU, let's head north and look at what UND did, starting with their in-state recruits. NDSU didn't get all of them, and Minot was in the mix again as Magi teammates Ben Bolinsky and Matthew Marler have both signed with the Fighting Hawks.
I went on my official, and I got to know them a lot better, and we grew in our relationship. And second of all, I chose UND because it has my major, what I want to do. And third, I think they know what they're doing up there. So just the opportunity to play again. You got to prove yourself again. You're at the bottom of the barrel, obviously, coming in as a freshman. And you just got to prove yourself, and I think that's one of my favorite things that you get to do going into college.
I chose UND because I wanted the challenge of being a walk-on. I could have gone to a couple places just off a scholarship, but I wanted that challenge of being the walk-on. I kind of wanted to earn my scholarship and everything, so that's one of the main reasons I chose it.
All right, in addition to Bolinsky and Marler, UND also landed a couple of other North Dakota products. Hunter Pinkey from South Border, Noah Wanzik were a couple of big targets in high school, and each of those guys could make an impact on Saturdays as well, Jason.
Yeah. They are guys that didn't play huge roles on big winning teams, but you could tell they had the talent. And UND, the last 2 or 3 years now, have been doing a much better job of keeping some of that in-state talent. And not such a coincidence. It's been when Bubba Schweigert took over, a North Dakota guy is keeping those guys around.
Well, and he said that when he got hired. We are going to focus hard on the state of North Dakota, and it's starting to certainly pay off for that. And for more on UND's 2016 class, let's bring in Greg Enkers.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. Coach, your third year of going through the recruiting process here at the University of North Dakota. How do you feel like this year's crop shook out for you?
Well, we're very excited about the guys that will be joining our program and have committed to UND football. You know, the 18 signees were those that signed on the dotted line, plus the walk-on commitments. We're really happy with these guys. We've built very good relationships with them, and we look forward to a bright future for all these young men.
You mentioned 18 signees, 4 walk-ons, give you a total of 22 new players on your team. 3 of them come within the borders of North Dakota, that being tight end Hunter Pinky from Wishick, wide receiver Noah Wanzek from Jamestown, and a walk-on quarterback Ben Belinsky from Minot. Let's talk about those 3 a little bit, starting with Pinky and Wanzek. Those guys were big targets in high school. You anticipate them staying at their same positions in college?
Yeah, you know, Hunter, we think, has a huge upside at tight end and played 9-man football and down in my home county. So it's special to me and a special area for me. But Hunter has a great future here. Mother competed in track and field here. Grandpa competed in basketball here, so it's just a special signee for us, and he's all in. You know, we think he's going to be a great leader in our program for years to come. Noah Wanzek, another area that I live. I lived in Jamestown for 9 years, so I have a lot of good friends down there and a lot of good people down there that have great things to share with us about Noah, and he's a very good person, just really talented athlete. You know, just a night ago, before signing, he went for 29 points and 15 boards on the basketball court, and we just think he's a big receiver. Once again, huge upside. We think he'll make great improvements when he gets to commit to one sport, and we really are excited about Ben Belinsky from Minot High. He's a preferred walk-on, came to a lot of our camps throughout the years. We got to know his family well, and we just really like his intangibles along with his talent. You know, there's something about quarterback. It takes more than talent, and he's the point guard on the basketball team and does such a great job in football of running the huddle and managing the game. We just think he has an opportunity to make some great strides here in our program.
You look at the quarterbacks that you have on the roster now as it stands right now, and it looks a little crowded under center. Is that going to challenge Belinsky to progress, do you think?
Well, you know, it's going to be up to Ben, how much he wants to learn and how much time he wants to put in. And I know that's the one thing I love about our coaching staff. They're going to be there for all our guys that want to learn and want to put in extra time. And I know Coach Rudolph does a really good job with our quarterbacks. He played the position himself, and it's a tough position to play in our system because we really demand a lot from our quarterbacks just in learning the responsibilities of everybody on the offense and not just the quarterback position. So Ben's a smart guy and loves football, and we think he's going to be able to handle it.
Of this group that you have coming in, who do you see as some other immediate impact players that could have on your team?
Well, you know, you never know until they get here, but we ask all our guys to really approach fall camp like they're going to be playing this coming fall, and we think Alex Cloyd has a bright future at tight end, and he's got a lot of talent, and he's got some strength early on as a senior in high school. You know, he's got a great wrestler, and we think Travis Toivoden's a big receiver that can possibly do this, and you know, the offensive linemen a little bit tougher, but we aren't going to rule them out either, and just a lot of guys, Jordan Kennedy, Evan Holm, you know, Jake Geyer, a number of guys that we're considering taking a good hard look at fall camp.
Your key focus in some areas, obviously the offensive line, linebackers, D-backs were all kind of addressed, but you weren't necessarily looking for players that fit that mold, were you? It was just getting athletes here, wasn't it?
Well, that's what it is. At offensive line, we want big athletes. You'll see, you know, Bennett Helgren plays basketball. Noah Mortel plays basketball. And those guys, it's just great for them to be competing year-round, moving their feet and developing each and every day as an athlete. And big frames, so those are going to be big guys at some point, you know. And Devin Hunt was a wrestler, and he's competing every day. And we just love to see the multiple sport athletes because I think they're great competitors, and now they're going to be able to focus on football once they get to college. And this group as a whole, very athletic, and we increased our size. I think they're long athletes, so they're just a greater potential for those guys that have some size and some length.
Well, we're very anxious to see them get out on the field, and hopefully we'll see some, if not many or most of them, in spring ball here coming up. That'll be just around the corner. Thanks for your time, Bubba.
You're welcome. Great to be here.
All right, back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Greg. Here is the full group of 4 from the University of North Dakota in terms of commits from the state of North Dakota.
From
Jason.
our area, yep. And Ben Belinsky is the name that you recognize if you watch a lot of high school football. And he might be a little undersized. He's not the prototypical FCS-type quarterback, but there's a reason UND is interested in him. Very accurate. He's got a deceptively strong arm, and he's very mobile in the pocket as well. We saw him run almost as much as he passed at the high school level. And then you see the big receivers, the big targets, Pinky and Wanzik. They've got the height. They're going to fill in a little bit their college bodies, I think, before they become weapons for UND. But they definitely are on the radar as being one of the top teams, or top couple of players over the next few seasons.
All right, and that's a look at the signing day experience for the North Dakota kids and for UND and NDSU in general. And now that we've taken a look at those FCS programs, it's time to do the same with South Dakota. So we're going to break down the 2016 classes for SDSU and USD next on the Varsity Sports Signing Day Special.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute, Shields, and Farmers Union Insurance Agency.
And welcome back, Jay Elsen, Jason Andera, and this again is the Varsity Sports Signing Day Special. The buzz around South Dakota State, Jason, is that the Jackrabbits have assembled one of their best recruiting classes ever. We're going to break down the entire group in a minute, but let's first focus on the South Dakota guys. Cannon Nelson put up a terrific season to make Mitchell relevant in football this past year. The quarterback was among the first to accept a scholarship from SDSU, and he's excited about the opportunity to be a Jackrabbit.
I love the coaching staff. They kind of looked at me right away since being from Mitchell. So just getting to know them early on. And then before my senior season, I just wanted to get that out of the way, and I felt like talking to my family and players that played here, SCSU just felt like a good place to be. So that's why I chose before my season to commit here at SCSU.
Well, Coach John Stiglmeyer, happy to get Cannon Nelson, happy to get some other in-state recruits. He knows it's a big part of his job to recruit from within the state.
Well, we start in South Dakota, and yes, it does matter. If a guy's equal and one's from South Dakota, one's from a different state, we're going to always go with the South Dakota guy. I mean, we're South Dakota State, and we hope it means something to a South Dakota student athlete to play at South Dakota State. So, without a doubt, very important in our recruiting class.
All right, let's take a little deeper look now at the South Dakota State class for this year. We're going to get more in depth with those South Dakota kids in a bit, but first, let's go to Tom Neiman, who's got a little bit more on SDSU's successful signing day.
Coach Stiglmeyer calls this Adoption Day. It's like he gets 25 new sons at this time every year into his family. And he joked that this is his 19th best class ever. And Stig says that every class really is getting better than the last one because kids are always working a little harder and dedicating themselves a little bit more every year now. Anyway, this recruiting class is 26 players from 10 states. They get 4 from South Dakota, 4 from Wisconsin, 3 from Iowa, and 6 kids from Nebraska. And remember, Jimmy Forsyth and Jared Bloom, Isaac Wallace, Matt Clark on the offensive line, all guys from Nebraska who started or played last year for the Jackrabbits. Anyway, Dan Jackson is the assistant coach that recruits Nebraska for South Dakota State. He says Elijah Wilson is a defensive end from Omaha. He is one of the best, if not the best player that they are getting this year. Wilson is 6'4", 260 pounds. He had offers from every FCS school around, and he was the Metro Defensive Player of the Year in Omaha. The Jacks also get a cornerback from Omaha named Monte McGarry, and both Coach Stig and Coach Jackson say that McGarry could play as a freshman at corner next year for the Jacks. And another Nebraska kid is Jack Domandel, who had the offensive lineman, big kid, had some interest from Nebraska and from Kansas State. His mom, Julie, is from Huron, South Dakota, by the way. And another interesting family note, the Jacks get a safety from Rock Rapids, Iowa, named Pete Menage. His dad, Tom, was a really good running back at the University of South Dakota. Dakota back in the early 1990s. So, great class for the Jackrabbits. Coaches just keep saying, keep stacking good class on top of good class and keep making an annual run to the FCS playoffs for the Jackrabbits. Spring ball is less than 2 months away, fellas. Back to you guys.
Well, we mentioned those South Dakota guys, Jason, a little bit earlier, and in addition to Ken and Nelson, some pretty good gets here.
They like what they see, and some of these guys, again, scholarships, some walk-ons, but Wesley Gennett from Parkson, a big guy that he can play at the FCS level. Preston Tetzloff, two-time All-State linebacker for Brookings, making big plays on the defensive side. I see him continuing to do that. Brady Sorensen, kind of a nice to have a long snapper. Somebody with that skill is important, especially with all the kicking they do in Brookings. And then Hunter Hanley, just a monster for West Central. This is the first West Central product they've had since they've gone D1. So it's kind of nice for a program of that success to be able to put some of that success, talent at the FCS level. And then the tight end Austin Barrett out of Douglas, he was under my radar. I don't know much about Barrett, but when you get a guy that's 6'2", 240, can play a little defensive end, can play a little tight end, I think that's going to go a long ways for SDSU in the coming years.
Yeah, all right. Well, good stuff for the Jackrabbits, getting a bunch of local guys into their program. Thanks to Tom for that report. Well, the University of South Dakota's in-state list, Jason, is a little bit bigger, honestly, in 2016 than it's been over the past few years. Bob Nielsen and the Coyotes signed a total of 5 South Dakota kids, including a pair of D linemen from Harrisburg.
It was like meeting a celebrity, to be honest, because I've never really seen anybody. I've never really seen him in person before. I've seen everybody talking, saying these good things about him, and he was a really good guy. I really enjoyed him and Middleton coming into my home, and it made me realize that I can't wait for the future with him.
I just felt good. The coaches, like I said, they were great guys, and then I can just see them. They know what they're doing. They're going to get us to win games, and the program that they're building will be pretty impressive.
Well, as you can tell, Roth and Headley both liked the coaching change, and the Yotes also added the state's top quarterback, Piers Brevin Kaiser, also liked the new coaching staff.
When I went up for my visit, the number one thing was to meet the new coaches, and honestly, that's what really sealed the deal for me. I love the new coaches. I love the way that they felt about the program. I could tell that they were really confident in what they were building. In the end, I've always had a dream of playing football, and that's where my heart was. So, I took my time and made sure that I made the right decision, and I believe that I did.
Jack Peary played in a run-first offense at Sioux Falls O'Gorman, as we all know that pay attention to football in this part of the state. But the 6'5" receiver still managed to make a ton of great plays through the air. He, along with Knight's teammate Dodie McQuinja, also picked USD.
So I met the new head coach, and I think he's a great guy. He'll move the program forward in the future, and it would have been nice to play for Joe Glenn, but I think Coach Nielsen's gonna move it in good direction.
It's pretty cool. I've only been playing football for 4 years, so for me, it's kind of hooray, like a pat on the back, because this was not even in the picture for me. I didn't even think, about playing at all.
Well, you heard it right there. All 5 of those guys talking about the new coach at USD, and you had a chance to catch up with him.
Yeah, Bob Nielsen, we've heard what the guys had to say about him, but I could tell you after meeting him this afternoon that he's very excited himself about the group he's put together, based a lot on the local guys that he got. Let's hear from Bob Nielsen.
Well, I think the one thing that stands out is they all come from very successful programs. They're proven winners, guys that are going to come in and understand what it takes to be successful. They certainly are good athletes, but a lot of times it's those intangible things that really separate them, and I think that's the case with those 5.
Well, we don't have to go very far to find a Coyote expert here. We've got to look no further than the man to my left, Jay Elsen, who watches them as closely as anybody. And this is the second time that we've seen a new coach, a coaching change, since we've been doing these signing day specials. How has this new staff done with the transition as far as everything, recruiting involved?
Well, I think obviously that was one of the big question marks coming in was, man, they don't have much time. You're talking mid-December. The rest of the staff didn't get announced until early January, and they basically had a month to put it all together. And what did they get? They got 24 scholarship athletes. They've got 7 walk-ons coming in. 31 guys committed to Bob Nielsen and the Coyotes just in a matter of the last 4 weeks or so. And so I think that tells you something. And several guys. It goes beyond just the local guys that were impressed with Coach Nielsen and were impressed with his staff. Guys from the Twin Cities, guys from some of the other states that I talked to. Basically, it all circled back to Coach Nielsen and believing in what he's trying to build at the University of South Dakota.
Well, one area that's always been important in South Dakota is to get kids to play for the Yotes. How did they do this year in that department?
Better than most years, or better than most recent years anyway. I mean, you're talking about 5 guys here, and all of them are legitimate scholarship caliber athletes. Not all of them got scholarships. The 2 from Sioux Falls, Bequidja and Peary, are going to be walk-ons. Kaiser's a walk-on as well. And the 2 kids from Harrisburg are going to be on partial scholarships. But that being said, I think that goes to show you it's difficult when you're the guy that's coming in and you're new, you're outside the area, then it's that much harder to convince these local guys that what you're doing is what they want to be a part of. But it didn't take long. And Ethan Roth was one of the first guys to commit. There was only 4 commits at the end of last season for South Dakota football. Ethan Roth was one of them. Talked to him immediately after the hiring of Bob Nielsen. He said, "I'm all in, 100% Coyote." He never wavered in his decision. And then Jacob Headley, originally committed to Augustana. He flipped to USD partially because of Coach Nielsen, and then after the fact, it set into his mind, hey, I get to play with my buddy Ethan Roth as well, so that helped as well. So kind of what you were talking about earlier, where one fish kind of gets some of the other guys to buy in as well.
All right, well, let's talk specifically now. One of the needs, I think, for USD has been a big receiver. They got one in Jack Peary. Tell me how you think he might fit in.
Well, he adds a lot of size. There's no question. We saw his athletic ability throughout his senior season at O'Gorman. Receiver was a big need overall for this class, and as you look at it, that's one of the highest number of guys that they got at any one position. 6, actually tied for the lead with defensive line. And Peary brings... that size is something you can't teach, and obviously his athletic ability speaks for itself as well. So he's a guy that's going to have to earn his keep, but you pair him with a guy that they got last year in Nickel Myers from Lincoln. You got a couple of nice outside targets with big physical bodies that are able to go out there and make some plays, especially in the red zone. And so I look for Jack Peary to have a very successful career at USD.
All right, one more specific question about a player coming up. Dodie McQuinja. We saw him carry the ball a lot for O'Gorman. We expect him to probably play defense at the next level, right?
He's going to go to linebacker, and that's where he's going to focus. The USD's pretty full up on the talent at running back, just with the class that they signed last year and the guys they've got coming back. But Dodie's a big, bruising guy, and he's got that physical build that you need to be a linebacker, particularly in the 4-3 system that Bob Nielsen's going to run. So in his situation's a little unique, too, in that Dodie is an international student, and so there's some academic money involved there as well, and that's part of the reason that drew him to USD. But he's gonna line up at linebacker and see where it takes him.
Yeah, all right. Let's take a broader look now at this USD class. Where did they improve in maybe some immediate needs? Did they maybe stockpile some other needs for the future?
Well, we talked about the receivers and how important that is. 6 guys there, 6 guys on the defensive line. They were very thin on the D-line, with just graduation and then a transfer that left in Andrew Van Ginkel as well. So they needed to shore that up. And let's be honest, you can never have enough depth on the lines, offense and defense.
Anywhere,
and so that was a focus specifically as well. But I think speed on the perimeter, and you look at the wide receiver group that they brought in, they certainly achieved that there. The defensive back group that they brought in as well, between corner and safety, they've got speed on the edges that they knew they needed to add to compete with some of these teams in the Missouri Valley. And so that was clearly a focal point, and I think they accomplished what they set out to do there.
All right. Well, thanks, Jay. We've taken a look at the FBS and some of the FCS levels, but now, if the bigger schools aren't for you, we've got a segment for you. Absolutely. Coming up, some D2 players, including a couple of Bismarck Demons and a trio of Sioux Falls quarterbacks who chose Division II.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute, Shields, and Farmers Union Insurance Agency.
And welcome back. We wrap up this year's Varsity Sports Signing Day special now with a look at how some of the D2 schools in our region fared in 2016. And I have to say, Jason, by the looks of these lists, they did pretty well. Jed Stugart and the University of Sioux Falls, for example, didn't have to go very far at all to find some very talented players, including a handful of Sioux Falls, Washington standouts.
I really just looked for the schools that were there for me at the beginning and just went for a place that was right for me, and USF ended up being that spot. It's just going to be a different atmosphere. I mean, high school football, Friday nights, it's fun. Just be with your buds and play for your school, but Saturday's going to be another level of intensity and excitement. I just can't wait for it.
It's really just like dating, because you just got to figure out who's best for you, figure out who's going to be better in the long run, and sometimes some schools look better, they're more flashy, but you got to really find out what's on the inside.
It was more stressful than I was anticipating, but in the end, I liked USF's program and what they had to offer, and the coaching staff and players that they had there.
You know, I was looking at 2 or 3 different places, and for the longest time, actually, USF wasn't at the top of my list. After I took that visit and was on campus and met with the coaches and everything, I just instantly fell in love with it all.
Well, you see something in common on here, Jay. Lot of talent from inside the city limits of Sioux Falls.
Yeah, more than most years, frankly. I don't remember another time when they got this many guys right in their own backyard. But not only did they get some guys, they got some very, very good football players.
Well, let's start with a couple of guys like Nathan Durfee, a guy who can punt. He had an over 70-yard punt last year, but he can also hit from the safety position. He's going to make an impact. Alex Capel, another guy from Roosevelt, a big guy who can move people up front. Kyle Sims started for Lincoln for the last 3 years. He's going to fit in well. And Zach Strand from Pierre, he made some huge plays and almost helped his team to a state title last year. But we got to talk about the Washington guys. A lot of guys, especially Ty Smith, who got things done on the football field, led his team to a state championship. Great defensive player as well, but this is the reason I think right there, he can come down with the football.
A lot of
he's
ability.
So valuable.
Yep, big body, and he's a guy that could get a look at tight end, could get a look at wide receiver, but he's going to help the Cougars, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's a guy who had looks from FCS programs, even a preferred walk-on at Nebraska, and chose Division II. Congratulations to all those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he had a look at USD, he visited NDSU. I mean, there was a lot of interest in Ty Smith, so the Cougars got a good one there.
Yeah, I think Jed Stugart is smiling.
Absolutely.
Well, Augustana University also reeled in a couple of the city's biggest playmakers. Luke Fritsch quarterbacked O'Gorman to within 1 win of that 11 AAA championship in 2015.
Augustana wanted me, and I felt like they really were investing in me more than these other schools. And I felt like Augustana was saying, you know, we want this player, and we're going to go get him. To where I kind of felt like the other schools were like, well, you know, this player would be nice to have, but if not, that's okay.
Well, another look at the list, and another list with a lot of Sioux Falls playmakers. Isaiah Fettrell from Sioux Falls, Washington. Justin Mueller, a great corner who has great ball skills. And Alex Keegan from St. Thomas More. By the way, St. Thomas More had a lot of college prospects on that roster this year. But let's talk about Tyler Van Voorst. This is a guy going into the season. I heard he had an offer. I didn't talk to him about it, but I heard he had an offer from USD. Decided to wait and chose D2. A guy who spread the offense around at Sioux Falls Roosevelt, didn't hog up the stats, but every time he was involved in the game, he made big plays.
Well, and you talk so much about, you know, there's this assumption that going D2 means you're a less talented guy. That's not at all the case. Maybe you don't have some of the measurables, or maybe these D2 schools are just the better fit for you. And that's kind of the impression that we got when we talked to a lot of these guys.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of guys on that level. Tyler Van Voorst is going to be a good player for the NSIC.
Absolutely. Well, Northern State has done very well in South Dakota as well under head coach Tom Dosh. And that was certainly the case again this year. Fritsch's high school teammate Boston Bauer is one of the guys that signed with the Wolves.
I wasn't too excited actually about going up right away because not a lot of people know about Northern, and it's actually like great. I think personally they have the best facilities in D2, and the coaching staff is great, and how they like my weekend this past weekend was great, and like everything, and the kids are great.
Well, Northern State, last few years especially, have loaded up on South Dakota talent. Boston Bauer coming off of an injury last year, but he's very versatile, and he'll be able to play a lot of different positions for Coach Tom Dawes. You see the rest of the list. Colton Dragoset had a great year with Stanley County. Tanner Iwan, an all-state type of player from the 9-man level. Jacob Bechter, a big guy from Waverly South Shore. I mean, we could talk about each one of these guys, but I think one name that pops off this list, Gerald Maxwell for Brookings.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's been playing since he was a sophomore, kind of in the shadow of Mikey Daniel, but he really had a coming out party in his senior year.
He did, and he was one of the few guys in the state that on any given Friday you thought had the potential to go for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. There's not a lot of guys who could just step foot on a football field and have the ability to do that. Brookings didn't have the team success that they were looking at having following that runner-up finish the year before, but it was certainly not for a lack of effort from this guy right here.
Well, they're going to have a chance to use him over the next coming years. He can play a little fullback. He can play some running back. He's going to be a definite asset for the Wolves. Well, Bismarck is the capital of high school football in North Dakota. And that's been great for the University of Mary football program. And the Marauders have done it again, landing Bismarck High's all-state running back Jackson Ford, his teammate Braden Thomas, as well as Century star Adam Geiger.
Really, the biggest reason why I went there, I'd say it's mostly because they got all these local guys on board, a bunch of names that I knew, and I thought, hey, I want to play with these guys because they just tried to get a lot of guys from around the state, and I think that's the biggest reason why everybody is committing to Mary is because they want to play with all the guys around the state.
I chose the University of Mary to continue my football career, and I felt just staying close to home and being able to play at the bowl again, it just felt right for me, and my brother plays out there, so I just felt it was right for me.
There was a lot of different things that kind of led me to go there. I mean, I like hunting and fishing, so I like staying here. My parents talked to my family. It just seemed like the right decision, and I just kind of went with it.
Well, we had to use some small print for the U-Mary board. In fact, there are several boards here to look at. They maxed out their scholarships, or pretty close to maxing out their scholarships this year, getting in-state talent. We've seen the Marauders often go for JUCO talent or guys from California. This year, real concentration on North Dakota talent.
And you like to see that, and that's important for these local guys as well. And it's all over the board. It's not just Bismarck area. I mean, they're getting guys from the east side of the state, west side of the state, border to border.
Exactly, and it helps, just like Adam Geiger said, knowing the guys that you're playing with.
Sure.
And once there's an avalanche and everybody starts going toward you, Mary, it's a way to change things around for the program.
Yeah, absolutely is. All right, well, Steve Lockway's rebuilding process at Minnesota State Moorhead is starting to pay some dividends, and he's added even more talented pieces into the mix this year, including a state champ from Century, Zach Sweep.
And I like the program. I really like the coaches with Steve Lockway as the head coach, and then our new running back coach that they signed last year, Ollinger. It was really cool getting to talk to him on my last visit and seeing what he was able to do with some of the backs this last year.
Yeah, Zach Sweep, one of the guys included on this list of MSUM Dragons, and another team that's kind of taken that turn for the better over the last couple of seasons, and you see they're going to keep going that way. Malik Larimer had put up some huge numbers in 9-man football out of Thompson, and one guy that, again, pops off this list is my Class AA All-State, or actually Varsity Sports Player of the Year, Carson Zarek out of Wahpeton. This is a dual-threat quarterback, loved to run the ball. Also, he got a few breaks like that, but he's a great passer and led Wahpeton to some great years over the last couple seasons.
Nobody needs to know their breaks. They don't show up in the box score as breaks, right?
That's right.
Very good player, though. And certainly, as Steve Lockway continues to build that Dragon program, you're seeing the investment in that program. How big of a deal is that? Obviously, the financial support from the university is there, and all of a sudden the wins start coming. And these guys, guaranteed, a lot of them are going there because they can see that investment. It's similar to a lot of the other schools in the area.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of these schools just building from within, and it's fun to watch the area NSIC schools really stockpile talent.
Yeah, for more on Division II recruiting, specifically in the NSIC, we turn now to David Brown, who hosts the Northern Sun Experience for us here at Midco Sports Network. Dave, NSIC schools don't have that same kind of budget that the big schools do for recruiting, so they always rely pretty heavily, as as we've seen on local talent. And at first glance, how do you say they did this year?
Well, guys, some of the schools did a little bit better than others as far as recruiting that local talent. We'll start in North Dakota with Minot State and UMary. Both of those teams coming off of 1-10 football seasons in 2015. Both of them looking to reinvigorate their programs a little bit. And as far as local talent is concerned, UMary definitely came out ahead as far as the battle between them and Minot State. The Beavers only had a handful of recruits from North Dakota, but the Marauders had 31 different recruits commit from North Dakota, some as far east as Fargo, some as far west as Williston. So UMary has definitely got the ground game going as far as covering the entire state of North Dakota. Moving a little further south to South Dakota in Aberdeen with Northern State. Not a whole lot of Aberdeen kids. They kind of have a mixture of North and South Dakota kids. But as far as the arms race in Sioux Falls, USF and Augustana, both of them heavily recruited those Sioux Falls kids. In the end, Augustana ends up with 4 kids and USF ends up with 7. The big playmaker for Augustana that they got is Justin Mueller out of Roosevelt. He's a big defensive back, was the MVP of the 7-on-7 Classic earlier this summer. He'll provide a big difference for the Vikings as far as their defense is concerned. But for USF, I think they got the biggest prize in Ty Smith, the wide receiver or tight end. They don't really quite know what he'll be yet at Sioux Falls, but he comes out of Sioux Falls, Washington. Big playmaker, had some preferred walk-on offers from some D1 schools, but he turns them down for a guaranteed opportunity at Sioux Falls. Him, along with Jet Thune, the quarterback from Sioux Falls Roosevelt, they may form a dynamic duo for years to come. So as far as the NSIC is concerned, some schools did a little bit better than others as far as recruiting local talent, but all of them, as they will claim, got the big names that they wanted.
And which name keeps coming up? Ty Smith, right? I mean, we keep talking about it. That's a prized possession there for the University of Sioux Falls.
Well, there's a lot of them. He mentioned a couple. Jet Thune, Skelhaas, a lot of those guys. Just going to be fantastic to watch that conference over the next couple of years.
Not all of the guys that are local ended up staying in the state of South Dakota or North Dakota. Some of them went to some of those other NSIC schools, and we've got a couple we want to mention here.
We've watched Mitch Hansen do nothing but win with Madison the last couple of years. He's going to hook on with Wayne State College, another guy who rumbles down the field with his legs, but also has a really skilled arm, and you can't question the winning. Madison has not always been a winner, but now with Jacob Giles and then with Mitch Hansen, have produced 2 really good quarterbacks over the last couple years. And he gets to throw to Jamal Al-Busaifi out of Roosevelt, who's also going to go to Wayne State. So it'll be fun to watch those 2 guys play in Nebraska. Now you move over to Bemidji State, for instance, Derek Murph, an undersized guy, another guy who's a great athlete at the high school level, but doesn't fit that 6'1", 6'2", 6'3" frame, and gets looked over, and he's going to move in the NSIC level 2, playing with Bemidji State. So a couple of guys going out of state who I look for to have pretty good years.
Schroedermeyer going to Minnesota State Mankato.
Another guy. I mean, this guy, he's verbaled very early on in the process, knew he wanted to play at Minnesota State Mankato, and talk about great programs to play for.
Yeah.
I mean, he comes from a great program at Roosevelt, getting some great coaching, part of that great defensive backfield with Mueller and Durfee and some of those other guys, and he was a big part of that. Cole Schroedermeyer is going to advance and play at that level. And, you know, we talk a lot about these NSIC guys, but a lot of great players are choosing to play at the NAIA level too, and we've got so many great NAIA programs around this area to pick from, including Dakota Wesleyan, where a guy like Chaden Fitzsimmons will be able to run the ball right away. His teammate Jensen Amdahl also able to play at that level. Morningside's bringing in some great players from Roosevelt, specifically Sean Powell and Tanner Mahacek, both going on to play at Northwestern, another great NAIA school in the area. So, yeah, we don't have enough time to reach quite everybody on this list, but a lot of great players going on to play at college football.
Well, we are running out of time, JD, so I just want to ask you before we go, thoughts on this year's class? I mean, it's all over the board, but and I know it's going to be very difficult to sum up this big of a group in this short amount of a time, but what are your impressions here?
Well, the impressions are that the FCS schools are now learning how to recruit in-state. I mean, it's taken a little transition, but I think at this point, they know that they can get some of the best players, but there's always a couple FBS players, and this year we've got one of the best we've ever had in Matt Varniak going on to play in the Big Ten, and I expect that trend to continue where there's 1 or 2 or sometimes 3 or 4 players going on to that FBS level, but we've got a lot of talent in this state, and the FCS schools are capturing some of the best. But there's enough for everybody. We've seen that throughout the show today. There's enough for everybody.
And we talk quickly. FCS, Sioux Falls. I mean, there's the state of football. High school football in Sioux Falls, obviously very strong, with all these guys committing right here in the city.
Yeah, O'Gorman, of course, Washington, and Roosevelt doing a great job of turning out players. Lincoln just a year removed. Maybe not the quantity, but they're there too.
Congrats to all the guys who signed today and realized their dream. For Jason Andera, I'm Jay Elsen. Thanks for watching this Varsity Sports Signing Day Special.